Hi, welcome to Look Movie Recaps. Today I'm going to be telling a story different from stories I usually narrate. It is a story of humanity, love and sacrifice. Let's get started. The story opens on a wide highway, with a lovely and beautiful girl behind the wheels of the car listening to music. She overtakes a truck, but another truck is approaching in front of her, so she speeds up her car so she can dodge the approaching truck. Unfortunately, this doesn't work as she expected, so her car collides into the approaching truck and she loses control, causing the first truck she had overtook to smash her. We are then introduced to other scenes of a couple, John and his spouse, Diane, watching the evening news. The US economy is sinking. Eventually John hears some voices. He runs outside and finds that the cops are seizing his wife's car since they did not pay the bank's debt. During breakfast, Denise is unhappy because her car has been taken and they do not have the money to retrieve it. This shows us that they are a struggling family trying to make ends meet. Regardless, John reassures her that he will receive his cash shortly and that everything will be okay. At this moment, their son Mike arrives. He is a diehard WWE fan who aspires to be a wrestler in the future. The next day, John is driving his wife to work and Mike to school in his car, and music is being played in the car, they enjoying as a family. Laughing and cracking jokes about each other. It is such a wonderful and unforgettable family time. Shortly, they reach at Mike's school. While dropping him off, John says goodbye to him, which Mike dislikes. He'd rather hear him say see you soon than goodbye. John works as a part-time laborer at a steel mill with his friend Jimmy John. We later learn that he is chasing a higher job elsewhere, and he is going to conduct an interview for the post. They discover that there are 400 applicants for one opening. Jimmy informs him that no one will be hired. He further tells him that the HR will offer the position to one of their relatives. Reaching the interview, the HR rejects him on grounds that he is overqualified. John returns home. The next day, they attend church like any other devout family. After that, they attended Mike's baseball game. This was all part of their daily routine. And they were contented with it. However, this time was going to turn out so different from the others, because while playing baseball, Mike collapsed. He is rushed to the hospital. Only parents could understand the emotions and the anguish that John and Denise were experiencing at that time. Denise was so worried and disordered that she couldn't let nurses do their job correctly, so they told her to leave. While Jimmy and his wife are out in the waiting area of the hospital. They were all unaware of the calamity that is awaiting them. After some time, Mike was stable but unable to talk. The doctor then starts examining the graphs on the ventilator and tells Denise that Mike's blood pressure is now at 88, and that if it drops below 70, Mike will die. A while later, they were summoned in the management faculty room, where they meet with the hospital director and senior cardiologist Rebecca, and his counterpart, Raymond Turner. After thorough assessment of Mike's situation, they are informed that Mike needs a heart transplant as soon as possible. Turner describes Mike's abnormal cardiac position to them, but it was hard to believe since Mike was completely fit in the previous 24 hours. The doctor tells them that either they accept the transplant or take Mike home and wait for his death. This was a harsh, breathtaking period. Without hesitation, John decides to have heart surgery. But this could cost $250,000, which is quite a lot of money, but since he has a medical insurance, he thought it would be catered for. Turner then stated that Mike's blood group is a good one, so finding a donor will be easy, but after a thorough look at his insurance, Rebecca interrupts saying that John's insurance does not cover Mike's situation. John insists to go and recheck with his bosses whether the kind of insurance he has will cover Mike, but in the meantime, they had to deposit cash in order to get on the donor list. They will have to deposit at least 30% down payment, which is nearly $75,000. John only has $1,000 in his bank account. Their child was dying, but the hospital director was solely interested in money. Being that it was the best hospital when it comes to heart transplant operations, Turner advised them to avoid transferring Mike to another hospital. John and Denise leave the management room disappointed. From that point going forward, John started the quest of saving his child. In the meantime, John goes to HR to discuss his insurance coverage, but to John's surprise, the HR informs him that his insurance policy could only provide $20,000, which does not even cover quarter of what is needed. John protests that his son is ill and would die if he is not placed on the donor list. But it doesn't seem like the HR cared. John contacts his state services to obtain funds but receives no good reaction. One day he receives notification from his insurance company that his appeal has been approved. He hurries to Rebecca, happy that he has finally received consent. Rebecca informs him that he completed the wrong paperwork, and that the new policy did not include any reimbursement for transplants. While disappointed and in grief, they decide to start gathering funds from their friends. However, this also did not come as expected because they were only able to raise $4,000 and $75,000 seemed like a long way off. So they started selling off their home appliances, but still they couldn't come close to what is needed. A while later, Jimmy advises John to disclose his problem to a well-known reporter. Later that day, they met a reporter and they started telling him about their unfortunate situation. The reporter also doesn't seem much of help to them. They were able to collect $16,000 after selling all their home appliances. John gave the hospital $6,000, but surprisingly, he receives a call from Denise, who tells him with extreme emotions that the hospital is going to discharge Mike. She further urges him to do everything he can so as their child is worked upon. John was shocked and offended about the hospital's act. John rushed to the hospital where he encountered Turner. He was conversing with a wealthy man who was also awaiting heart surgery. Turner's behavior toward John was quite different from this wealthy customer, so John requests a private meeting with him since he knows Turner made the decision to expel Mike from the room. John argues Turner that they perform 300 procedures each year and make millions of dollars. So why can't they perform just one surgery? For the sake of humanity. But Turner refuses to assist and asserts that he does not establish policies, but this time, John didn't request him. Instead, he put a gun on his chest and asked him to do what he said. Otherwise, he will kill him. Turner became terrified. John enters the emergency room and locks the entrance door. Other people fled when they saw the gun, but John quickly locked the door, and just a few individuals remained inside. There were now his hostages, and as he was destroying the surveillance cameras, the security officer in the control room noticed him and called the police. When the cops arrive, Lieutenant Frank, a police negotiator, contacts John and threatens him, but John is prepared for this and demands that Rebecca should enlist Mike on the donors list. Frank then tries to emotionally blackmail him, but John was committed. Inside the hospital, most of the patients are in the condition where they need to be attended to. They are all disorderly and confused, some are sobbing due to pain, but John tries to speak to them politely and promises not to hurt them. In other scenes, Denise is with Mike, whose blood pressure is steadily dropping. A kind doctor is actively inspecting him, and he even offers him a bodybuilding toy. Shortly, the head of police arrives on the scene. All of the captives in the ER get used to each other, so the nurses stated that Michael's sickness might have been noticed much earlier during a normal examination, but the doctors might have ignored it because they get paid by insurance companies to keep shut, so they continue getting huge profits ignoring innocent lives. This was horrible news that all captives started sympathizing with John. All he was left with was loneliness and hoping for miracles to happen. Later, Frank contacts John and asks him if he could release some hostages, but John insists on first putting Mike's name on the list. But during the call, one of the nurses informs him that one patient needed transfer because she was due to giving birth, so John offers to release some hostages, giving priority to those that were in a critical condition. But shortly after, Mitch, one of the hostages, attack him, but is assisted by another hostage in subduing and handcuffing him. John then releases the patients in critical condition. At this point, John's actions are broadcasted in the whole country and he is receiving praise and support. Rebecca and the cops decide to lie to Denise about putting Mike's name on the list so as to trap Denise to call John and convince him to surrender, and this would buy the cops time so as to infiltrate an officer through the air vent and they capture John, dead or alive. John then received a call from Denise. She put Mike on the line and they started chatting, but this call was broadcasting live on television. Everyone, including medical staffs in the room, and the public outside, were shedding tears as John chatted with Mike. On hearing their chat, Rebecca also becomes softened. She has realized her cruelty to them. While all this was happening, the sniper that was sent to get John in target, shoots him. The cops were unaware that all that was broadcasted, and so, all the public went against the cops claiming that he hasn't hurt anyone, and he also released some hostages, but the cops haven't reached their part of the bargain of putting Mike on donors list. Fortunately, John was only shot on the arm. After realizing that he won't be getting any help from his own government, John decides to kill himself so he can donate his heart and save his son. This was his only demand. Everyone gets stunned. John convinced Turner to carry out the procedure. He says his goodbyes to Mike at last. He is ready to shoot himself in the head with the only bullet he brought. Yes. His rifle was all along empty. Meanwhile, the accident girl we saw at the beginning of the movie dies and her body is sent to the hospital for a post-mortem examination. This came as John's miracle because they were sharing that same blood type as Mike. Rebecca becomes excited and informs Denise about the good news. Immediately she tries communicating to John, who hadn't received the news yet and was ready to shoot himself to save his son. John picked the walkie-talkie but did not speak since he believed his wife would prevent him from what he was yet to do. Denise rushes towards the operating room to deliver the news that the heart will be there in 15 minutes. When he gets the news, John releases the hostages. One hostage poses as John and turns himself into the police as John enters the operating room with the others so as to watch the operation. Frank realizes this but lets him watch before arresting him. 3 months later, John's actions have sparked a national debate about healthcare. John is ultimately convicted of kidnapping and unjust incarceration, but not attempted murder or armed criminal conduct. If you've watched this far, thank you. Subscribe, like and comment for more recaps. Have a great day.